To a review of Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse, the animated Spider-Man movie that came out I don't know, like a month ago, a month and a half ago, and I saw it like a month ago, but I kept getting busy. Every time I went to record it, I was either too busy or my phone was dead or something was going on. So I just didn't ever record my thoughts on the movie, and now I'm gonna try to dig them up again to freaking remember what happened in this movie. Basically, I'll go over the plot. Maybe that'll help. Not in a spoiler fashion. Basically, there's a bunch of Spider-Mans, and this crazy event happens that brings a bunch of these Spider-Mans from alternate universes into one universe. And it's basically they have to stop the bad guys, whatever. That makes it sound much lamer than it is. The plot is kind of generic, though. I guess if I would had one complaint about this movie, it would be the kind of generic plot, but everything about it just works. It's also an origin story for a Spider-Man, but not Peter Parker Spider-Man, because that's a boring story. Miles Morales Spider-Man, the black, younger Spider-Man. Basically, the movie is about him, and the other Spider-Men are just kind of enter his orbit. And that's where the core of the movie lies. And I should say this before I continue. It's a very good movie. I thought it was really good. You should see it. Even if you're experiencing superhero movie fatigue, it's very different from a normal superhero movie. For one thing, it's animated, and normally when I think animated superhero movie, I think Teen Titans Go to the Movies or some dumb Cartoon Network TV movie type thing. And so I don't Justice League DC Showdown on Disney XD or something. And so that was my initial reaction when I heard about the movie, was oh, okay, animated weird superhero movie, alright. But then I don't really know how I got into it. It just kind of happened. I don't know if I'd heard the movie was good or what, but I just sort of was alright, I guess I'll go see this movie with friends, and then I did, and it's really good, and I look really weird and pasty. It's probably because I only have a lamp on. Whatever. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's one of the more original superhero movies in a long time. It's nice to watch a superhero movie that isn't tied to a universe necessarily. I mean, eventually it'll probably get expanded. The movie was successful. Sorry, it won a Golden Globe. I mean, so there's gonna be sequels, but I don't It's nice to see this movie that stands on its own as its own thing, a cool origin story for a cool, different character taking up the Spider-Man mantle. And it's interesting because there's already a Spider-Man in his universe. Peter Parker exists in his universe. And he goes through a story where he ends up taking the mantle. And the story is just, I don't know, it's really strong. Every little beat about it works. But, Let me go through what I like to talk about the story with spoilers, so I'm going to talk about the non-spoilery stuff first, because it is a movie you should probably go into without knowing the whole plot. So let me start off first, the animation. The animation. My yawning does not convey the fact that I am bored by the animation. I am very excited. I don't know if excited is the right word. It's very good animation, is what I'm saying. It's got this unique sort of style that's a mix of hand-drawn sort of CG stuff. Very comic. It has this comic booky look. They do a lot of fun little comic book text boxes and stuff at certain points. They play with a lot of... It's hard to describe. Just look up some clips from the movie and you'll know what I'm talking about. The action is super good, too. The way it's shot, the way it's filmed. The way they keep it all PG, but it doesn't hold back the action at all, whereas something like Venom, which I have seen, but I didn't think was worth making a review on, because it's just a nothing movie. I've already forgotten most of it. Venom feels like it's missing half an hour that they cut out to make it PG-13. Like, I remember the movie being over and it being like, wow, that was short for a superhero movie. That was kind of nothing. That was kind of just nothing. Into the Spider-Verse doesn't feel held back by like a PG rating. The action is very stylish. It's surprisingly gritty. Like, there's basically a team of villains that the Spider-Mans have to fight, and each of those villains, for the most part, has their own sort of like threatening identity, and none of them are like the standard Marvel villain. None of them are like the standard Spider-Man villains we've all seen before. Kingpin is the leader of the bunch. He's the leader of the bunch. We know him well. It's funny that I just sang that because he is built like a Donkey Kong. He's an absolute unit. He's basically he's literally this giant. His style is great. It's great. He's a good example of how good the animation is. He literally is just like this giant block with like a tiny head, like a tiny little head. It's really hard to describe. It reminds me of, there's this artist that like draws these really blown up versions of characters where they make their body super huge and the head really tiny, and that's what it looks like. It looks like that as a character. It's a super good, and it makes him very like it conveys his imposing like physicality without having to like do like R-rated violence like the Daredevil show has. And there's moments where he like punches people really hard, and they don't show the people. They just show him like slam down, and then they have a sort of like explosion effect around it. That's not quite an explosion effect, but like a very comic book panel, like, whap effect. It's just really cool. Like, there's so many, like, cool little... some of the Spider-Mans have a different animation style. Like, there's a sort of cartoon pig one, Peter Porker, and he's got this one animation style, and then there's, like, a noir one played by Nicolas Cage. That was something that made me interested in the movie. That's just a funny concept. He's playing this dark, gritty, noir detective Spider-Man, and he talks like this all the time. It's very funny. And it's just like, there's just so much that's impressive about the animation that I can't even like really begin to it's not something I can describe. It's something you have to see for yourself. And then the characters are all really good. Like Kingpin, they actually bothered to give Kingpin a backstory, and they like quickly went through it, but made you understand. And I'm like, wow. And it's largely told through visuals, too. Like, the way his backstory is told. There's a great scene where he's, like, anxiously clicking a pen, and every click it goes into this little, like, flash of his backstory. And that's how they give you his backstory. And they do it in, like, a minute. And it's like, oh, okay. I mean, it's not, like, super complicated or anything, but, like, even bothering to do that is more than a lot of Marvel movies do. Like, live-action ones. And to fit that in, because there's a lot in this movie. There's like 6 Spider-Mans, there's a bunch of villains, like, there's so much stuff in the movie that it could have easily been like an Amazing Spider-Man 2 or something like that, where there's just like too much stuff, but instead it's all like just this perfect like arc of like references and characters, and you get little snippets of characters, and they're very like identifiable. I think the animation somehow kind of helps with that, like, you can just kind of see where a character is coming from immediately, in a way. There's also this villain called the Prowler, who works basically a hitman that works for Kingpin, but he's super threatening. They have several awesome chase sequences where he's just chasing Miles, who is like a kid, and he's like he has these like claws. He kind of looks like a Spider-Man. He kind of has a Spider-Man-esque outfit, but like with a purple color scheme and like a creepy cloak and hood thing that are all sort of like metallic. It's hard to describe, but he has these claws, and he has this great music that's like very intense and like kind of like freaky, like it's like, and you're like and he's like chasing him down, and there's some like I wouldn't call it a kids movie. That's what you think animated superhero, and what I was describing earlier about what I think when I think of animated superhero movie, and what I think is very much kids movie. I wouldn't describe this as a kids movie. It's kid-friendly, a kid can watch it, but it's like the truest definition of an all-ages movie. Like, it's not written for children any more than it's written for like adults. Even more than like a Pixar movie or something like The Incredibles. It's an all ages movie. Like I wasn't even thinking of it as a kids movie. And that's just, it's a very maturely written movie. Like it basically shows this like art. It's basically like a coming of age story for Miles Morales. You start out, he's at a new school, this private school that his cop dad put him in, and he's like worried about not living up to his family's name, and he's hanging out with his sort of cool, rebellious uncle who doesn't expect anything of him, and it's kind of this whole thing, and he meets this cute girl, and it's like, oh, this is nice, and then he gets Spider-Man powers through an event, and I'm going to start getting into spoilers here. Basically, he encounters Peter Parker fighting Green Goblin, who's like this giant goblin thing, and then Kingpin. And then Kingpin kills Peter Parker. That's... Earlier I was talking about the punch. That's what they show him, like, punch, like, pound on Peter. But they don't show Peter, they just show... And him going, ah! And it's like this, like, really shot. I remember, like, reeling back in my seat, like, whoa. And then Peter's just dead. And he doesn't come back. That's why I say it's not like a kid's movie. There's a Peter from another dimension that comes. Basically, the thing Kingpin is building is like a weird dimensional crossing device to bring his girlfriend back. And from the dead. Like, bring her from another dimension, I guess. I don't know. And it basically... Peter Parker gets, like, zapped by it. And so... all these Spider-Man spawn into their universe, come flying into their universe from other universes. And it's cool because each one has this little, like, my name's Spider-Man, and this is my origin story, sort of fun little montage sequence. And it's kind of self-aware, like, it doesn't ever spend too long. And that's what the movie never spends too long on anything, and it only occasionally doesn't spend enough time on something. For the most part, it spends pretty much the perfect amount of time on every single character, every single plot beat, every single fight, every single thing. It never drags, and it never, like, speeds up to the point where I'm like, wait, what's going on? Wait, why is this character doing this? This is weird. It's hard to even talk about, because it's kind of like a perfect movie. In terms of pacing and structure. It's structurally perfect, basically. And there's even, like, some interesting twists that you can kind of see coming. Here's one of them. Big twist. Spoiler. This is where, if you haven't already clicked off, you want to click off or, like, skip forward a minute or two. The Prowler, the super scary Claude villain that I mentioned, he ends up being... Skip now. He ends up being Miles Morales' uncle. Like, the guy under the mask is Miles Morales' like, rebellious, sort of cool uncle. So it's like the guy he looks up to, and he's been chasing him around, trying to kill him. And they sort of foreshadow it throughout the movie really clever. People keep calling Aaron, that's the name of the uncle, and he, like, doesn't pick up the phone. He's like, I'm out right now. And then the last time he is called is, like, right before a scene where he shows up. So I did predict it at the beginning of that scene. I'm like, is he going to be the Prowler? And then they have him take off his mask, and the music picks up, the really good song for the Prowler that I mentioned earlier. And Miles freaks out. And then the Prowler ends up dying because he finds out... Basically, he gets Miles at one point, and then Miles takes off his mask, like, stop, don't kill me. And his uncle's like, oh, shit, I can't kill him. So then Kingpin, like, shoots him. And it's a real... that was one thing where I think maybe they went a little too fast. I would have liked to know why Aaron was the Prowler. They don't really, like... It's never addressed. Even when the cop dad shows up and is like, what the heck? Here's my dead brother in a vigilante costume. He doesn't ask him. I mean, well, he can't ask him. He's already dead. But yeah, that was major spoiler talk. And there's a lot of, like, fun little twists like that. Like, Doc Ock is a girl. Like, there's this female character that is working with Kingpin, and you think she's just a scientist, but then no, she's Doc Ock, and it's a girl this time. And there's also a great kind of bonding story. This is getting into less spoilery, so if you just jumped forward from when I said there was spoilers, you can kind of get some of it here. Wow, I just completely blanked. Sorry. You're probably like, did the video freeze up or something? Why is he just... no, I blanked. What was I talking about? What was I talking about? Wow, okay. There's a nice bonding story between Miles and the Peter Parker from the other universe, who's sort of this, like, disgruntled, he and Mary Jane broke up because he didn't want to have kids. Again, a really, like... or he wasn't ready to have kids. Again, a really, like, serious sort of adult thing for a kid's movie. Massive quotes, because it's not. It's not. Like, it's not even like the Disney Pixar, like, it's a kid's movie that's still good. It's just not a kid's... no, it's just not a kid's movie. Like, it's a movie. It's a really good superhero movie, and the animation isn't just because why not animated? It's like... it's what I like to see out of animation. What I think more animated movies should be, at least in the American sphere, because I know anime already kind of does this in a lot of... in Japan, there's a lot more, like, serious animated stuff. But it's like the animation is a medium to tell the story. And that's where I get back around to the animation. Like, go see it for the animation alone, if anything. Like, it just lends so much more style and substance to these fights, and these characters, and these moments, and this, like, perfectly paced plot, and not just the animation, like, even the soundtrack. Like, I normally don't mention movie soundtracks in my reviews, but, like, the movie literally starts out with Miles Morales jamming out with headphones on in his room to, you've probably heard this song, "You're a sunflower, you're a sunflower, it starts out with him doing this. Baby, I'm a wreck. Baby, I'm a wreck. He sounds a little bit better than that, but basically it starts out... It really nicely... like, it takes its time getting into the Spider-Man stuff, which is nice because it, like, establishes Miles as a character beforehand and makes him... well, starting it out with him, like, jamming it out in his room to headphones, I was, like, sort of awkward laughing, because I'm like, this is me in my room, and I feel like I shouldn't be seeing this on the big screen. It's too much of a pure, like, just real kid moment. I mean, his character's clearly, like, quite a few years younger than me, but... yeah, it's a lot of the same things still apply. And it's sort of this, like... and they do a really good job of keeping him true to that, like, he is just a kid. And in the end, he has this big sort of, like, hero moment. But it's essentially realizing that he can be, like... his uncle tells him, hey, you can be like anyone else. And you're better than all of us, Miles. In a certain part of the movie that I mentioned earlier, that is spoiler. Because now I'm trying to avoid talking spoilers because I kind of got it out earlier. But there's just a lot of, like, it's hard to even talk about without spoiler. This is just like an overall comprehensive, like, me gushing over this movie because it was so good and I want to see it again. Like, I haven't seen it again, but when it comes out on Blu-ray or DVD or whatever, I'm definitely watching it again, and maybe I'll make a follow-up video. Probably not, because this is pretty long. It's just like, if you haven't seen this movie already, I think it's still in theaters. If you haven't seen it, like, go see it. It's not going to be hard to get into anymore. It's been like a month. You won't have trouble finding a ticket. But, like, no matter who you are, I think there's something for you in this movie. It's just like go to just see how well made it is, if anything. Even if you don't get sucked into the plot and, like, relate to the characters, at least if you like animated movies, you gotta support this movie, dude. If you want good animated movies to be made. It won a Golden Globe. It also got an Oscar nom, and I'm glad it didn't get snubbed for animated movie, best animated feature Oscar noms like the Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie did, because it's better than both of those movies. And I greatly enjoy both of those movies. I think I have reviews of both of them, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is maybe the best movie I saw in 2018. That's a high praise. Like, I think it is a better movie than Infinity War, even if Infinity War has this sort of like the fandom surrounding it and the years. Infinity War is monumental as the sort of conclusion of a series. And I never made a review of Infinity War. I suppose now the time's to say I'm probably just going to wait until Endgame comes out and review them both as one cohesive package, because there's no point in reviewing Infinity War now. But Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse still fresh enough, still new enough. Even if I watched it several weeks ago, it's still really strong. There's a sort of romance subplot in it as well. The cute girl he meets ends up being another one of the Spider-Man. Spoiler. And that's not really that developed, but again, not again, because I didn't mention this before. It all feels like it could be explored upon in future sequels, and I'd love to see sequels, because the movie was so like original and unique and interesting in its like presentation and just the way it went about telling the superhero story. That I mean, like, for one thing, how many superhero movies have actually been made that deal with like alternate dimension versions of characters? And the movie doesn't like pander. It doesn't like over explain all the dimension hopping stuff. It just assumes that the audience, can get it. Like, they're smart enough to understand it. And it also doesn't focus on like dimension hopping craziness. It's essentially just everything is a medium to tell the story they're trying to tell. And it's clear there's a lot of passion behind the movie. I mean, as good as some of the Marvel movies are, it can be easy to feel like there's not that much passion behind some of the MCU movies, because they're just sort of being made as part of this large machine of movies. And it's nice to see something that really has a vision behind it, an idea behind it, and is like committed to that idea and to that style. Apparently they spent like years perfecting the animation style, and it shows, because it's just a beautiful, like, amazing movie. And if you haven't seen it, well, if you dismissed it because it's an animated superhero movie, whatever. It's not. The animation is a way to tell the story, and everything. It's just great. I'm trying to think. Is there anything I saw in 2018? Any new movies in 2018 that I liked better? I don't think so. Not Mission Impossible Fallout. I didn't even like that one as much as Rogue Nation. Did I? I made a review of that. Not Infinity War, not Black Panther. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is my movie of 2018. I'm going to say that, and I'm going to say it with confidence for now. So, yeah. Arrivederci!